Well, this is Turn 3 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. It's located on 23rd Avenue next to AMC Theaters and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. You can go over to Joe's today and get some fast-paced white-knuckle racing in, where the only speed restriction is how fast you are. We are joined by President of Kansas Speedway, Pat Warren. Mr. Warren, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Well,
me, sorry.
It's okay, me, myself, and I. There's multiple personalities here.
Speedway.
What's that?
I was thinking plural for the Speedway.
Well, we're welcome to join the Speedway while we're here, too. Yeah. You know, as of last night, the Sprint Cup guys have packed up, and their haulers are headed towards Kansas for a weekend of some great racing. Can you give us a little bit of an insight as far as what it takes on a Speedway's preparation level for getting ready for NASCAR to come in for a weekend?
Yeah, I mean, the work for us really begins as soon as, generally I'll talk about spring and Omaha. You're a little bit colder than we are, but not much. But as soon as basically you get out of a risk of frost, we start doing major de-winterizing to the property. And we've got a 1,200-acre property, of which, the Speedway sits on a 1.5-mile oval track. But that 1.5-mile oval, you could fit the University of Nebraska Stadium in there twice with the parking lots that immediately surround it, and it wouldn't touch the apron of the track. You can go to Google Earth and you can do it. It's amazing. All of that stuff has to be de-winterized, and the biggest part of it is our suite tower. And so you just have all the work of sort of bringing the facility back to life. We grow from a full-time staff of 35 people during the course of the year to a race weekend staff of 3,500.
Wow.
And so you've got to put all the organizational stuff in place and all the systems in place and all the training to be able to manage that and have it go well, so that because you don't want to manage every one of those 3,500 people. You've got to have them ready to be able to take care of the guests on their own.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite an operation. And Buddy and I have got to see it firsthand. It in motion as both behind the scenes and in the grandstands, as concessions and cleanup crews and everybody that's involved in getting that thing going. It's truly a circus, if you will.
It is. No, it is. I mean, we joke about the series being sort of a traveling circus, and to a large degree it is, because it's the Sprint Cup Series and also the Nationwide and the Truck Series are self-contained operations that go into venues like ours and set up shop every week, and they've got to have almost everything they need to survive. They carry.
Mr. Warren, this is Buddy Ray sitting shotgun with Dan Taylor here on the front stretch. The one thing I really want to stress to the folks, I had never been to a Cup race until we actually went down to Kansas City last year, and that was a lifelong memory right there. You've got to be extremely proud of the crew that you guys bring together, the first of the year when you start de-winterizing this facility. When I was down there, I noticed everybody from the maintenance, janitorial, all the way down to the race officials, everybody was so nice and so friendly. And that is one extremely beautiful facility you have down there south of us.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. One of our sort of consumer phrases that we use is the best guest experience in motorsports. And the reason we say that is because we're 12 years old. We aren't going to be the most historical track. Daytona, Richmond, Bristol, pick your poison on another track that has more history. It's going to be somebody but us. We might not be, for all fans, the best racing. Some people like short track, some people like super speedway, some people like an intermediate like ours. But what we do know we can do is provide somebody with the best experience they've ever had at a racetrack. And that's from the moment they hit our property and they park their car, so they go in and sit down, buy concessions, use the restroom, whatever they're doing through the course of the day. We want our staff to do it with a smile. We want people to feel good about it. We want them to feel welcome. Because they've got choices about where they spend their time and their money. And, if they choose to come here, they deserve to have a great experience, and we want to give it to them.
We're joined this morning on the front stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio with Kansas Speedway President Pat Warren. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years. Obviously, the economy has been a bit of a downer for everybody, and it's taken its effect on the NASCAR world because sporting events and big events like a NASCAR weekend are generally the first thing to go when a budget starts to get trimmed. We've seen this in the attendance releases that have been put out, and we've seen the grandstands on the as the cameras are panning with the cars. How has Kansas and how have you guys rolled with the punches over the last couple of years to make sure you don't fall victim to some of the economic downturn that we've seen over the last couple of years?
Well, it'd be dishonest for me to say we haven't felt it, because we have. And we've seen it in a later renewal process. We've seen it in fans, who reach out and they say, "Hey, I lost my job. I really want my tickets. Can you do this for me, or can you do that?" And we always try to work with people. But we have seen a reduction in demand and a reduction in sales. But what we've done a couple of things. A, we've tried to be as flexible as possible with our fans, so that if somebody wants to come here and there's a way we can work it out, we'll figure out a way to do it. It doesn't mean we can discount. It doesn't mean we treat one fan better than another. But if we can figure out a way to make the situation work for them, we'll do it.
That's something that's actually very shocking for me to hear, that a big conglomerate in an organization such as Kansas Speedway in a NASCAR weekend will actually work with the individual to get you to still come and enjoy all that is Kansas Speedway in the NASCAR weekend.
Well, we do what we can, and some of it is solving those problems by putting systems in place. As an example, we offer payment plans for our customers so that we don't have to individualize and solve each situation differently. If somebody wants to pay us in 3 payments or more or fewer, or manage it a different way, we try to put the things in place so that they can do that. And you don't, not to sound bad, but you don't have to tailor it to fit everyone's individual needs every time. But it really is about trying to be customer-centric, customer-focused, which we, honestly, us and the sport have not always been the best at. In the times when the sport was growing extremely fast, it was much more about logistics and operations, still focused on the guest experience, but in different ways, trying to make sure that the guests got on and off the property quickly, that food was available, basic blocking and tackling stuff that we still have to do. But now we also have to take that experience to the next level as we compete for people's time and money more intensely against other events and things they can do.
Mr. Warren, in February of this year, the Hollywood Casino next door opened to the public there at Kansas City Speedway. Talk about what the casino will add to fans when they come to experience a Kansas City Speedway race.
Well, the biggest thing that the casino does for the track on a race, first of all, year-round, it provides a draw that's unbelievable. We've had 500,000 visitors come to the Speedway property, and the casino sits on turn 2, for anybody who doesn't know. We've had 500,000 visitors come to the property just to visit the casino since it opened in February. So in just over a little over 2 months. Those people are all, I don't know if they're all new to the area and new to the Speedway, but they're all potential race fans. And so that's a great opportunity for us to introduce people to the sport. In terms of a race weekend, what it does is it creates just one more element of fun and excitement for people when they come to this area. And I don't want to overpromise. The facility, the casino itself is not big enough to hold the number of people that the Speedway does and that we're going to have here on Sunday for our Sprint Cup, race when we've got nearly 100,000 people. It's just not going to work. But for somebody who's coming down here and camping for the weekend, whether they're on our property or another place, they can come to the casino, they can go up to the Turn 2 lounge, it's a sports bar lounge, they can look over the track. We're going to have the Richard Petty driving experience on track at night, doing race rides. There's an energy that's palpable. I'm sure you guys felt it last year. The closest thing I used to work in intercollegiate athletics, the closest thing I can compare Sprint Cup race to is a Final Four in terms of the energy that you feel on a property. And until somebody goes, they don't know that. They can't imagine that kind of energy and excitement. But that's what it is.
Oh, I would totally agree with that.
You always hear through ESPN and through people talking about how tailgating at a college event is really what kind of adds to the college event. It's people get there for like an NFL game. People get to like a Kansas City Chiefs game on Thursday, and they tailgate all the way up into Sunday. This is exactly what Kansas Speedway is like in a NASCAR weekend. It's the funnest thing. We walked around for 3.5 hours, and we met some of the awesome people I've ever met in my life. And the first thing they said was, "Hey, where are you from? Do you want something to eat? Do you want a beer?" And they were just so helpful, so nice, and we just got to meet so many of the coolest people, and that's something I honestly can't expect ever experiencing in any other sporting event.
I think you're right, and I think one of the differences between racing and NASCAR in particular and the other events is if you walk around at a Chiefs game or a Nebraska football game or a Kansas football game, and you're walking between the tailgates, people aren't unfriendly, but they're doing their own thing. Here, people welcome you. They want you to come be part of their group, and it's all part of a bigger experience. And it really is unique to racing, and the other thing that our fans do that I think are unique in all sports is our fans want to recruit people to be fans of the sport more than any fans I've ever seen for anything. They really want the sport to grow, and they really want other people to care about it. And it's a huge advantage that we have. To some degree, is an untapped resource that we're working on trying to figure out how to utilize.
You guys announced last year that the Kansas is going to be going through a bit of a redesign and a repave. Can you talk about the process to deciding to do that, and then the process of actually committing to do that?
Well, in terms of the repave, it was, to be honest, largely decided for us by the weather and the elements. The track itself is just not, it is not held up any better than any asphalt would after 12 years of Midwest winters, summers and winters. We think we haven't done the detailed analysis, but anecdotally, and I'm pretty confident we could back it up, we think we have wider temperature swings here than anywhere else in the country that you've got a track. Because you think about places like Michigan and Chicago, they don't get as hot in the summer. They get as cold in the winter, but they stay cold. And so for asphalt, that's better because you don't have that up and down swing that causes freeze-thaw damage.
Kind of like how it was 85 in December, and then it was freezing cold in January, and then it was 80s in February, and now we're into April, and it froze Wednesday night. Wednesday and Thursday night, it got absolutely freezing.
That's exactly the stuff that we're dealing with. And, just like it drives farmers crazy, it drives people who take care of asphalt crazy. And so, it's the same problem. And so the track, is cracking and has other issues. It's also got some drainage problems that are subsurface, that the only way to fix is to actually tear all of the asphalt out, go back, replace the drainage where we need to, the subsurface space, and come back in. So then the next question is, okay, how long does it take to do that? And is there something else you want to do? You ask yourself when you engage in that level of work. And we decided that what we wanted to do, if the resources were available and our company made them available, was to change the banking of the track and go to what's called a variable or progressive banking. So right now I call it a static 15-degree bank from the top to bottom of the corner. We will be, at the end of this process, we'll start at roughly 17 degrees and go up to 20 degrees in the corners. Go ahead.
After last year's nationwide win, Brad Keselowski said he was not in favor of changing the track, mostly due to his dominance. Was there any?
He's never been in favor of anything that would jeopardize his winning.
I don't know any driver that's in favor of anything that jeopardizes their winning.
Yeah. Was there any conversation with the Nationwide or the Sprint Cup drivers to find out what they like the most about certain tracks that would go into that 1.5-mile intermediate track size?
Yeah, there was. There were actually, we talked to all the Hendrick drivers. I personally talked to Brad and Clint Boyer, Kurt Busch, Kyle, and I'm not trying to pretend that I have great personal relationships with all these guys. Some of them I know better than others. But, whenever I had an opportunity at an event or somewhere else to bend their ear on it, I did. And what I heard universally was if you repave, put in progressive or variable banking because it makes the racing better from day one. And so they've seen that the places like Miami Homestead, which is a track that's owned by our company and designed by the same people who are designing ours, and it really makes a huge difference. It provides great side-by-side racing from day one. And in our case, it'll also increase the speed because we'll have steeper banking than we've got right now.
Pat, we've got a Facebook fan question we've got on the Front Stretch Facebook page. Jim Laughlin asked, is there any possibility we're going to see some night track racing, some under-the-lights racing at Kansas in the coming years?
Well, we're going to have a night race this fall for the ARCA Series on Friday night of our October race weekend. I think that's October 20th, might be the 19th. I apologize. I'm very focused on the April weekend at the moment.
I don't blame you.
So we will have an ARCA race this fall on Friday night of our race weekend. And I am cautiously optimistic, and that's probably the best I can say right now, that we will have a Sprint Cup race at night in 2013.
Mr. Warren, tickets are still available for next weekend's racing. Where can people go to for individual ticket, group tickets, and even RV camping tickets?
The best place to go is they can do one of two things. If they've been here before, they sort of know where they want to sit and those things. They're familiar with the property. I just go online to KansasSpeedway.com. If they're not as familiar and they want to talk to someone who can help them understand, sitting here versus there means this or that, I'd call 866-460-RACE race. That's 7223, I believe. And then they can talk to an agent who will be able to talk them through, well, if you sit in this row, in this section, this is what you can expect to experience. All of our seats are great seats. There's nowhere in the facility where you don't get to see the entire track. And so we're unlike many tracks in that respect. But there are different experiences in different places. Sitting at pit out is different than sitting at the start-finish line. Depending on what somebody wants to see, they may want to sit in a different area.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, I know when Dan and I were there last year, we sat in, Dan, 3 or 4 spots?
Yeah.
And there seriously is not a bad seat in the entire facility at Kansas Speedway.
Yeah, people are amazed when they come here and they'll go down and they might go down and sit in row 1 or 2 for a few laps. They're amazed that they can see the whole track and the speed of the cars. Because you really, when you get that close, you can really appreciate what it means to have a car going 160 or 180 miles an hour fly past you, or a field of 43 at that speed.
Mr. Warren, we really do appreciate you joining us. I think Buddy and I have both demonstrated we are massive fans of your guys' track and of the way you guys handle your business. If you haven't got your tickets for Kansas Speedway yet, get online today, kansasspeedway.com. You can also call 866-460-RACE. That's 866-460-7223 and get your tickets today. It really is something that we can sit here and talk about for 45 minutes about how awesome an experience it is to go to Kansas, to get in and out after the race, easily to get in and easily to get out and get home afterwards, but it's something you have to do and experience. Again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, and I hope all your fans had a great week.
Again, we want to thank Pat Warren, president of Kansas Speedway, for joining us this morning. Great interview, great guy, and a great organization. Get your tickets today. Again, kansasspeedway.com. You can order them there, or you can call somebody and talk to them live, 866-460-RACE, 866-460-7223, and that race is coming up this weekend. It's going to be a great race. Obviously, Jimmy Johnson, Brad Keselowski, those guys have dominated the last couple of years there. Earnhardt's been good. I believe Greg Biffle's won there. Tony's won there twice. So it's kind of a handful as far as
anybody could win it.
And listen, this is an April race, which means it's going to be cooler, which means the track is going to be stickier because the track's not going to build up the heat. The tires are going to last longer. So I think we're going to see some faster racing than we've seen in the past, and that adds for some great excitement.
Oh, absolutely.
Stay tuned. We're going to talk with Andrew Kaziski coming up next, as he's going to talk about the off-season changes to SLMR as the Dirt Track Series and how that benefits some of the drivers. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.